Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Monday movement. For those of you who don't know me or are new to my space, my name is Carrie. I am a massage therapist and yoga instructor here in Berea, Kentucky. And today I wanted to take the time to show you a couple of poses that you can do for low back pain. So we're focusing on the low back and some movement in that space. And so you don't necessarily need to do all of these movements, but here are a couple of options that you have to try to find some space and some relief in that low back. This is Lydia. She's decided to join us this morning. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to find just a comfortable seat for the moment. You can sit on a prop, you can sit in a chair. I just always like to start the practice by checking in with our breath and just starting to feel into our body a little bit. I think that really helps us be able to identify and become more familiar with what's happening in our bodies, especially since we're focusing on that low back today. So find a comfortable seat. You can close your eyes or gaze softly toward the floor. I want you to take a moment and notice from your tailbone and your hips all the way up the backside of the body, all the way up to the top of the head. And just notice how the backside of your body is feeling. Maybe a big breath in and exhale it out. Noticing the breath. So just taking these first few moments to kind of come into ourselves, to notice how we're feeling physically and energetically, maybe emotionally before we step into our practice. I mean, this is actually part of the practice, so before we get into the movement part. So just noticing how you are feeling. Maybe noticing that low back, noticing the places in your body that are feeling pretty good this morning or today or whenever you are watching this. And just taking this first few moments. Lydia's being very needy this morning. We'll take one more deep breath in. Exhale it out. And let's inhale both arms up. Interlace the fingers, reach for the sky. And then exhale the arms down. Let's do that again. So we'll inhale both arms up. Interlace the fingers, press palms away, reach for the sky, big breath in. And then exhale the arms down. Good. All right, we're going to come to hands and knees. We're going to come to tabletop position. We're going to start with some cat cows. So I like cat cows in that it just allows us to move the whole spine. So from the tailbone all the way up to the top of the head. We're just rolling through the spine. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You don't have to do a certain fast or slow. But we're just starting to find some movement in the spine. So from tailbone to the top of the head. Just rolling through. I think this feels really nice in the morning. Sometimes I'll kind of pause in this and give my hips a little shift from side to side. Just move in any way that feels good to you. Taking a couple of cat cows, and let's try to link the breath. So inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Good. And from here, we're going to thread the needle. So we are going to open up the upper chest or the upper back just a little bit. So we're going to bring the right palm to our belly, right arm under left, and just drop that right shoulder inside of the head of the floor. Just a gentle stretch. Now this hip is going to want to come forward. Really think about keeping the pelvis even. So I'm pulling that left hip back, maybe just an inch. And I'm just breathing into that space. So you may feel this more in the upper back. You may feel it more in the low back. You may feel it someplace else. All of that is perfectly great. And then come back up and we'll switch sides. So right palm is on the floor, left palm faces the belly, left arm under right. Dropping the head to the floor and the shoulder. Now my ear's not on the floor. I'm keeping that ear lifted to keep a little bit of a curve, kind of a neutral position in that cervical spine in my neck. This hip now is going to want to just press back just a tiny little bit, just to keep everything even. One more breath. And then go ahead and come on up. All right. We're going to go ahead and come to our backs. So those are great ones once you're already up. This is actually one that you can do in bed. I call it windshield wipers. So you're lying on your back, you bend your knees, feet on the floor. And like I said, you can do this in bed before you even get out of bed in the morning. And our feet are going to be a little bit wider than hip distance. So I don't want them nice and close. I want them to have like a little bit of distance between the feet. And then we're just going to allow our legs to go from one side to the other. So I'm keeping my feet engaged a little bit. So I'm rolling to the outside of my right foot and the inside of my left. And then I'm just going to rotate in the opposite direction. So that I'm on the outside of my left and inside of my right. And I'm just kind of windshield wipering my legs back and forth. Now, I don't want the feet to move because I feel like that changes it. You can do that, but for this exercise in particular, I'd like your feet to stay wide. That's just going to kind of get into that low back in a way that I would like for you to try. As always, you should pay attention to how your body is feeling. So if you're trying this and it really doesn't feel good and you want to modify, please do. So these are windshield wipers. I think these are just a really nice way to bring a little movement, a little rotation, particularly to that low back. First thing in the morning is a great time to do it, but anytime is really okay to do it. Those would be windshield wipers. So the next thing that I would do, and again, you can do this one also in bed, is take one leg long. So take your left leg long, and we're just going to hug the right knee toward your chest. I'm hugging that right knee in toward my right shoulder. Now you can play around with this a little bit. So you can take that right leg wide, so wide of the body. Keep thinking about this straight leg being slightly engaged. So I'm not bending the knee. I'm actually actively trying to keep that leg straight so that I'm getting this push-pull. So I'm extending one side and hugging in the other. It's giving me a nice kind of push-pull in the body. And this gets into the psoas muscle, which is a muscle that goes from the low back through the hips and into the pelvis. And again, so hugging the knee, maybe just toward the shoulder. Excellent. And again, that straight leg is active. And then we'll go ahead and release and we can switch. So I will bend my left leg, right leg long, hugging the left leg into the body, just left knee toward the left shoulder. Lydia is very happy to be joining us this morning. Maybe you hug that leg wide. Yes, Lydia. And we'll just hold this one more breath. And then go ahead and bring the right knee in. So now you're hugging both legs into the chest. And I'm just going to rock from side to side. And just take a couple of deep breaths. And then maybe take your legs and hug them wide. So you're kind of rocking through the low back. So from side to side, you're massaging the low back and into the sacrum. So you can stay here. The next option would be to grab onto the ankles for a modified happy baby. So you can hold onto the ankles and rock from side to side, or again, grabbing onto the outside of the feet for full happy baby. This really neutralizes the spine. You can think about trying to keep the tailbone and hips toward the floor. But if full feet, you can definitely grab onto ankles and get the same benefit, or grabbing onto the back of the knees. All of that gives you the same benefits. So depending on how your back is feeling, you can try those different modifications. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is staying on our back, we're going to do a little bit deeper twist. So we did windshield wipers. Now I'd like you to bring ankles and knees to a parallel to the floor. And then we're just going to allow them to fall to the right. Now your upper body can go with you a little bit and then start to kind of counter that. We're just getting a gentle twist kind of through the spine from hips all the way up. And of course, please feel free to support the body. So if you need something between the knees or underneath the knees, underneath the shoulder, and just breathing into that rotation. It's really a nice rotation through the body. Taking a deep breath here. Kind of feel into that space. Notice how this position feels. Now I'm not pulling into the twist. My right hand is just there for a little bit of support. And then to come out of it, we'll just lift the top leg first, unwind. I'm going to kind of reposition my body so that I'm more in a neutral position. I'm going to bring ankles up to the height of the knees, and this time the legs fall to the left. Again, my upper body can go with it, and then I'm going to counter it. So that gives a little more stability rather than keeping my shoulders down and letting my legs kind of hang. I'm rolling so that my legs are supported, and then I'm opening up. And you might feel one side. I feel the side a little bit more today. So just kind of notice how it feels to be in this rotation. We won't stay here too long. Just another breath here. One more breath. Good. And then lead with the top leg, unwind. We're going to come all the way up. So these are a little bit more active. So all of those poses I really find are great for the low back. The other thing as a massage therapist that I always pay attention to are your thighs. So we are going to take pigeon. If full pigeon is not a part of your practice, there's lots of different ways to stretch quads, and I'll show those to you. So one would be in pigeon, reaching back and taking a quad stretch. I find that tight quads, so the front of the thigh, can impact the pelvis or your hips, and then that in turn will impact your low back. So taking a nice stretch for those quads. So if you're going to take full pigeon, then we'll switch for the other side. And now, so if I'm in full pigeon here, I'm actually coming out of it just a little bit to take the quad stretch. I need that little bit of a lift up and out. That nice deep quad stretch. And you can release. So if full pigeon, you can come down to your belly, forearm comes in front, and just reach back for a quad as well. And then switching sides with that. You can also do this standing. You can also do it from a low lunge. I think low lunge is a little bit harder because I feel unstable. So I find this is actually even more intense, but you get the idea. There's a couple different ways that you can do that deep stretch. I'm going to the other side just to stay even. Whoa. So quad stretches I think are really good for low back. And then because we're stretching the quads, I am going to stretch inner thighs as well. So just bottoms of the feet together. You can sit up nice and tall. Again, I really find that sometimes the inner thighs and thighs in general can impact the hips, which impacts the low back. So paying attention to all of those. And this also feels nice too. This stretches the low back. So if I turn sideways, you can see a little bit. So bottoms of the feet together. Doesn't really matter how close, whatever feels good to you. And then you can actually start to hinge forward and get a stretch through kind of that low back area. So you've got lots of options. She's very needy today. Livia is one of 3 cats that we have. She's usually the least social, but she's being feisty today. All right, so those are the stretches that I have for you for today. So any of those, a combination of those, there's no particular order. So just really starting to see how that feels in your body. Always coming back to, you can come back to cat-cow, oh, and child's pose. We can also do child's pose. So knees wide, big toes together, shift the hips back. And coming down into child's pose. This is also really great for that back. Nice neutralizing position. I like it. All right, friends, thank you so much for joining me and Lydia today on our event. I don't know. She's distracted me quite a bit today. But thank you guys for showing up, for taking care of your bodies, for exploring and seeing how that feels. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time.